right, good evening and welcome to our school committee meeting this evening on Wednesday, August 14th, 2019. It is 7 p.m. and I'd like to call our meeting to order. Could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just remind everyone that we are being broadcast live as well as being recorded for future rebroadcast. We are still just a couple weeks shy of starting school, so no student representatives. Public, we have a few more members than we've had recently, but I don't see any public comment here. Anyone? Chief Vincent, you're here with everyone else? Okay.
You can.
Just wanted to make sure. So,
yeah, you can.
Oh, you coming up for public comment?
Yep.
I've been
Excellent.
asked to or
Okay.
report in.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great summer.
Yes. Could you just identify yourself?
I'm Brian Delaney, the principal at Douglas Middle School. Darn glad to be here.
Good to see you.
Wanted to report in, first of all, to thank the school committee for the approval of the much-needed STEM teacher for Douglas Middle School for the 2019-20 school year, and God willing, beyond.
Our pleasure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that we have in earnest, we are searching the internet and beyond for the best candidates, and we've already, today I met with two highly qualified candidates, and we are being very creative as to where we find the talent that's going to be required for this challenging but beneficial opportunity that Douglas Middle School and Douglas Public Schools have. So you have my absolute commitment that success is the only option. The kids are going to love it. We've got the great space for it. We've got the funding for it. We've got the drive for it. We have a vision for it. We just need the right person.
Good.
So please stay tuned for that, and you know, we're really excited for it. But just wanted to report in on that. Am I missing anything?
Wait, nope, that was it.
All right, thank you.
Only
you.
because
God bless
Brian was
America.
not here last meeting, so I wanted to make sure that he had an
Yeah.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
So, so we'll put that into old business that we're wrapping up from last week. Any new business that we want to cover this evening not on our agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to our superintendent's report, Mr. Maines.
Okay, so it is kind of jam-packed here. There are quite a few things, but we're going to begin with the first review of the district's safety plan. This has been an ongoing process for the last year and a half or so. A lot of work has gone into it, and I think, do you want me to have two chairs or threes? Two good? Just the two of you? Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Desi Vega and Brett Falone, who have been spearheading the work that's been done on it and generating the final product. And they can speak to it, and then we can answer any questions you might have.
Excellent.
Yep.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome.
You have a mic?
Awesome. Love microphones.
Hello, everybody. Guys had a great summer. My name is Desi Vega. I'm the assistant principal at Douglas High School. I am going to be presenting the safety plan that myself and the safety planning committee have been working on over the last year. It's something that the district did not have an actual plan, so we've been working on it to try to get it in. Before I present it, I just want to thank everybody involved in this: Officer Falone, Police Chief Nick Miglianico, Fire Chief Kent Vincent, Josh Romano, Principal at Douglas High School, the School and Business and Operations Manager, Courtney Keegan, and Facilities Manager, Jeff Collette. We've met frequently during the school year to put this all together, and this is where we're at now. So I'm just going to do an overview of it. It's pretty lengthy, and if I was to go over every nut and bolt in that thing, we might be here till midnight. So,
Right.
So basically, the purpose and scope of the plan. We want to identify and respond to incidents with responsibilities and duties of all Douglas Public Schools and employees. The plan empowers employees to act quickly and with knowledge, educates all employees, students, and other stakeholders of their roles and responsibilities. It provides parents and other community members that we have a plan to respond to incidents and hazards in an effective way if they do occur. This is a systematic method to protect, mitigate, respond to, and recover from incidents. We will be doing training with the faculty and staff in order for them to understand how to respond with established procedures and guidelines that are in the plan. As a committee, we laid out hazards, identified types of hazards the school district may encounter, preparedness for them, as well as prevention and mitigation for all of them. Preparedness is to maintain a plan through conducting, training, planning, and implementation of the drills, which we do plan on doing some drills down the road. Mitigation, the actions to reduce loss of life and property due to natural or human-caused disasters. The concepts of operations, we would follow the NIMS, which is National Incident Management System. These are a set of principles that provide a systematic, proactive approach that will guide government, non-government, and private sectors to work together in order to prevent, protect against, respond to, recover from, and mitigate the effects of incidents. This system ensures that all stakeholders involved understand their roles and have the tools they need to be effective. The incident command system, this is a system that will be used in order to manage all incidents and major planned events. In the event of an incident, DPS employees and students will be first responders, and with NIMS, it will enable them to respond more effectively. The principal or superintendent will serve as incident commander and direct all incident activities within school jurisdiction. He or she will give first responders an assessment of the situation upon their arrival, and a unified command system would be established to move forward with the plan. We do have a reunification plan that basically if we have to evacuate anywhere else, we have a plan to reunify the students and children together. That is definitely a major component to this, because if we do have to move off campus, move to another school or buildings that we already have all set up, we would have a whole plan where all staff would be involved to reunify the children and their parents. We talked to Northbridge and Uxbridge Public Schools about using their school as a reunification point if we have to move off out of the district. And then we put together, if they're in agreement with it, we'd put together a memorandum of understanding at some point down the road. So, and that's kind of,
Excellent.
Any questions?
So the plan is extensive. There's a lot of other nuances to it that they've come up with. Everything from the script for the reunification, the signage that is needed. It details specific hazards and how we're going to respond to specific hazards. Basically, what it does is it's taking what we put in place after Newtown, which I think was 7 years ago. We originally, if you recall, after Newtown, we put in basically a plan to sort of shelter in place, lock down, and stay safe. We advanced to Alice, and then it got to the point where we have recently had some severe weather in the area, and although we have plans in place, this was clear. It was clear that we needed a much more involved plan. To me, the next step with this is to marry it in with all of the town agencies, town groups, so that we're all on the same page and all following the same plan. This is a much broader in its spectrum of what it covers than what had been here probably 10, 12 years ago when I first got here. The first year I got here, there was a plan, and it was a flip chart. I'm not sure if it was just a little simple flip chart. That was our safety plan. So this is a much more extensive. It's got a great deal of detail. Des, can you talk a little bit about in the main office and the plans that you have in place with regards to the bag, the information that they're going to take, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, what we have in our main office is we have a big duffel bag. It's on wheels, and in that duffel bag, we have clipboards, pens, caution tape, first aid kit. We also have a file box that's going to have the rosters of each class that we can just take with us. It also has the information as far as that's in our iPass system, so the checkers know what parents are custodial parents, what parents aren't custodial parents. So we don't just hand them off to a parent that's, so everything will be in there. That's going to be an ongoing process. When we have students come in, that's going to be updated. It's always going to be updated. So kind of, it's going to keep. It's something that secretaries have to keep up with and make sure that it's up to date as much as possible. So if we do have to go somewhere, everything's right there. They take it and they go. So everything's, and we also have the to-go buckets we talked about last year, and those are
So the
coming
medical
with us, too.
buckets as well, we'll take some of those with us as well. The plan is to take those if we should have to evacuate and so forth. I should point out that in the time that I've been here, we've done 3 evacuations. 2 at the high school prior to Mr. Vega coming on board, and then 1 at the ECC when Neely was running the ECC, which was pre-K and K, I think, at the time, right? Or was it pre-K, K, and 1? It was K. And they had a carbon monoxide emergency. I don't know, Chief Vincent, if you remember that as well, where we had to evacuate all the students and bring them to the new elementary school, which at the time was sort of like the elementary middle school. And again, nothing was really in place, but we managed the evacuation. We managed the process. It was basically all hands on deck. I remember Nancy Lane calling and saying, bring your secretaries down, bring your guidance counselors down, bring whoever you can bring down here, so that we could manage, grandparents picking up their grandchildren because their parents are an hour away and so on and so forth. There were a couple of medical emergencies at that point. I think Jeff Collette had to go to the hospital as one of the people that had to go. So it's not something that has not happened. The 2 at the high school were bomb scares. We had to evacuate. We ended up going to the middle school, and we ended up going, I think it was to the town hall in the gymnasium area. And so we've had to evacuate twice there. We had to get the buses up here to get us out of here. So what the committee has done is really put down on paper, and I hope that we'll be able to do this in January. We talked about it at the last meeting that we had, is to do a professional development day internally, but around the idea of who has what responsibilities, how does the process work, try to get a few parents to come in and role play with us, to come in and get their child, and the whole process of getting them reunified with their family. For the police standpoint, we know that the first 3 or 4 minutes is going to be on our shoulders, but we assume that within 3 or 4 minutes that the police would arrive, and at that point, we know that the administrative team would step aside and it would be handed over to the police department. They would manage it along with, and I don't know, Brett, if you want to talk a little bit about who else could possibly be involved with regards to any state agencies that you might have to call and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I guess, and it all depends on the incident that we're dealing with. So Kent could be right on our door, on a doorstep as well, following us in to a scene, and his crew as well. But again, depending on the situation and the circumstances, we might then call in state police, manpower purposes, or even the local agencies. As a school resource officer, one of the things we've done, or I've done, over the last couple of years, is on a monthly basis, I meet with the school resource officers from the area towns, Sutton, Northbridge, Uxbridge. We've expanded as far out as Milford now in Bellingham, I believe. So we meet on a monthly basis. And one of the things we're trying to develop is if any of our towns, any of our districts ever have a major incident, whether it's an active shooter or an armed intruder, fire, or what have you, we're going to develop a system where we can kind of put an alert out to the other school resource officers from the other districts. Those that are available will come into our district and help us. And they're all schooled in the same reunification plans that Desi and Josh have been trained in. So the idea is that if they come on scene, whereas one of our officers from Douglas may not know exactly what their responsibility is, or their responsibility might be to secure the scene, these other school resource officers from the other districts would come in and they could work fluidly with Josh or Brian or Cindy or John and just know what to do, because they'd be doing the same things in their own districts. So that's one of the aspects.
We've actually worked with those other area resource officers in some of our lockdown and intruder drills as well. They've been here with us, and I should mention that both Brett and Desi have been out to other towns, as they're now realizing that they're a little bit behind the curve, and they're trying to jump on board with some of the things that we've been doing. One thing that comes to mind, I was on the phone with Norm Yvonne recently, and the reason for the phone call was, how did you manage when ICE came in and took all the parents of your school children? had never given any thought to that, no preparation for it, and no real planning for it. His school district was not adversely impacted, but others in the area were. Who thought of it? But,
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden, you've got hundreds of kids, and their parents are in lockup. Who's getting them off the bus? Who's feeding them? Where are they staying? And all of that. So I think more than anything else, it's a great roadmap for us. It really is step-by-step procedural things that we can all follow, because in a time like that, you're not going to remember them, so you have reference guides to utilize. So this is the first piece of it. I know you probably haven't had a chance to read through the whole thing. It is voluminous. Have you received it yet?
I don't think we have, no.
Well, I thought Lauren sent it out to you.
Yeah, I shared it with you and Lauren. I thought
Yeah.
she was going to send it out to them.
She must have forgotten to send
Want
it
the
to you.
packet?
I did not
I will make
see
sure
on
that it
the
goes
email.
out to you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Right, because that was going to be my question, is there a copy of
Yeah,
it somewhere to look at?
This is a portion
I
of it.
apologize. I thought you already had it with you.
Yeah, because I put it in a Google folder, so everything is in there. Everything that's in the plan is all in there, so you just can go in and
Okay.
read it right on the computer.
So,
There's a plan, but there's got to be at least ancillaries, and I don't know how many ancillaries there are with it as well. There's a number of other things. The plan is detailed and informative, but there's also plenty of ancillaries that go along with it. And we should also mention, just in wrapping it up, is that this is in addition to what we already do have in place, building-based. So we do have lockdowns, we do have severe weather, we do have intruders, we do have plans in place for different emergencies, but this is a much broader covering. It could be a oil spill somewhere in the area, or it could be something like what happened in Russia when they were, with the most recent meltdown that they had. Who knows? You know, knock on wood. So,
is this a document that would be put on our website? Is it contained?
yeah, so eventually, once it's completely through the process, we would get it on the website. It would be on each building's website. It would go to town hall as well. We would probably put one in the library as well, just to, actually, probably not in the library, but definitely in the police station, and definitely with the town administrator for sure.
Okay.
And probably John Furno as well, I would think.
Have we given consideration whether there's information contained within the document that would possibly compromise the plans, I guess, and that's,
There's certain aspects of the operation plan that wouldn't be available publicly. So there's quite a bit of it actually as well. So.
When you get it, there's also a part of it that's confidential. There's an area that has
That would never
appendixes.
be available, right.
Because there's maps of the school, it has a schedule of the school, it has students with disabilities, teachers, all that stuff. That's confidential. We have to have that, but that's not going to be out to the
Okay.
public. That's
No,
not going to be in that
absolutely not.
plan whatsoever.
thank you.
So,
I figured you covered it, but.
yep, yeah.
Figured I'd ask,
yeah.
just to make sure. So,
All right, yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you both very much. Chief
Thank
Vincent
you.
is here. Thank you very much, Chief, for also your participation in it, and we'll be back again with some more information for you to consider. I'll make sure that do you want it electronically, or do you want me to bring copies, send mail copies out? Hard copies? It's kind of long.
If it's long, I'd prefer a hard
Okay.
copy.
Yeah.
I'll get them in the mail.
Because otherwise, reading it on my phone is not going
Yeah,
to go well.
I will just give you the policy. I won't give you all the ancillaries. I'll just give you the policy itself, and then
Yeah, I think that's
that's,
probably appropriate, yeah.
it's a ton otherwise.
Yep.
So, all right, well, thank you very much, and I see Jeff Collette is here, so he was also a part of it, so we want to recognize Jeff as well. All right, I have a lot to say, but I really don't have a lot to say tonight.
All right.
Josh Romano has a lot to say tonight.
Mr. Romano.
That'll take
Let me go out.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, is this what we have
So
here,
Josh,
though?
you're gonna be working back here?
Yes, but you have the slides. So.
We have
Okay.
it, though.
I don't have to turn around
Yeah,
now.
so the first one is NEASC, I think.
Yes.
Although if Scott brings up something different, I can.
Adjust.
Who's that guy, Doug Admin? I don't know him. Is he a new guy? New hire?
That's confidential.
Confidential.
All right, so I'm going to present on we've got our NEASC final report in July. NEASC is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and they do the accreditation for schools across New England. They do middle schools, they do colleges, they do just about every level. Schools get accredited every 10 years, and our turn came up. And bottom line up front, it went pretty well. And I'll go over some of the highlights. So the basics on the process is that the school will go through a year-long self-study process. The staff will evaluate the school against a set of criteria in 7 standards: mission and vision, curriculum, instruction, assessment, school culture, student support, and community support. And then in October of 2018, a visiting team of 14 educators from other districts came in, and they assessed the school in those 7 areas. And that included focus groups. Some of you were involved in those focus groups. Class observations, student shadowing, and then everybody has a big party when they leave because all this work is over. But it doesn't end there. We got a report in July, and our vote that our accreditation was continued for 10 more years. But it's an ongoing process, so there's some other follow-up things that you have to do. So everybody has to do a 2-year follow-up report where whatever your recommendations that they made for you, because they give you a list of commendations, things that you're doing very well, a list of recommendations that you need to work on, and you have to give progress reports at the 2- and 5-year mark of how you're doing with that. And then once you hit 5 years, you're basically going into the next cycle to have your 10-year visit. I think Mr. Vega is planning to retire before then. You may also have to do a special report. It's pretty common, about half the schools have to do a special report where if there's something in particular that they think that you need to address sooner than the 2-year point, they'll do that. So we were renewed for another 10 years. We do have to do a special report to address a few immediate concerns, and then our 2-year report, which is due in 14 months. So they say 2 years, but it's 2 years from when they actually come to visit your school. So the commendations were great. These were the specific commendations that were put in our the official letter that we got, the adoption of the MASC core as our graduation requirements. That was the addition of the foreign language and arts graduation requirements. The AP Honor Roll Recognition Program, I'll talk about AP a lot tonight actually. The common planning time for core departments, and we are adding common planning time for foreign language this year. So every English teacher has the same prep period. Every math teacher has the same prep period, and they get to collaborate daily if they want. Creative solutions to budgetary shortfalls and cuts. So what they specified was the librarian. So we were able to bring back the librarian's position, and we had her run the library and teach 2 computer courses and run our Tier 3 interventions for non-students with disabilities. And they said, we do a great job of filling 4 holes with 1 peg. Put a pin in that, though, because I'm going to come back to that same position in a minute. Our student assessment team, that's the team of guidance counselors and student support personnel who they meet regularly to look at the academic and social emotional progress of students and develop plans for students who need help. And then the emphasis on building safety, which is the school safety plan that Mr. Vega just briefed on. All right, the special report. These are basically the recommendations. So the special report, which is due March 1st, 2020, the first 2, I'll put together a NEASC follow-up committee to work on those. They're about the 21st century learning expectations. Those are the skills that we think every student should leave with. They want us to go through a review process on it. They want us to make sure that we get information on what they are out to the community. Those are pretty standard, like everybody works on those. Number 3, they thought that the common planning time needed to be more structured. I kind of deliberately left it open this year because it was sort of a new thing for our culture here. So what I've done is I've made a calendar of monthly topics for common planning time, and I will meet with each department once a month to do that. So for example, in September, we're going to look at data. October, I think we're looking at benchmark assessments. So some of the other things that they had highlighted in the report. And then the last one, the use of formative assessments. Those are, think of it as like a pretest. It doesn't necessarily count for your grade. It's a way of assessing students' learning during their learning, where a summative assessment is how you test them after they've learned. Again, it's sort of a shift in education more towards that than that use of data. So we do have some professional development on formative assessments and collection of evidence that I'm going to do.
So that's generally across all subject areas?
Those, yes, yep. And they actually specify that there needs to be more analysis and use of data by departments that aren't MCAS tested. So outside of science, math, and English. So I mean, they have data that they use, but the other departments need to use some sort of homegrown data to assess students' needs. The 2-year report, which is due 6 months after the special report, the first one will be covered on report cards, how we communicate student progress in those 21st century learning expectations. And there are things like read critically, think critically, speak effectively, the civic responsibilities. We'll report those out better on the report cards. Continue the data use. The ensure upper level classes represent the demographics of the school. So there is a striking disparity in gender in our honors courses. They are critically, boys are underrepresented in those classes. You can walk through honors courses and see it. That's how they sort of notice it. And then I kind of ran the numbers, and it's striking. And then you compound that where boys are not our top athletes either, and they're not our school leadership. And so there's sort of a cultural thing here with boys, and I'm going to work on that with my student advisory council to see why.
You noticed that during senior week this year, just the number of awards and everything else.
Yep, our girls dominate the culture of the school, and including my student advisory council, where we're going to try to work on how to get boys more involved. But it's one approach that I'm going to take with it. The last four, those are all budget related. So remember that great commendation we had about having Katie Malo fill all those roles? Well, they said she really shouldn't be filling all those roles. Somebody else, that means additional staff needs to come in if we're going to continue those tier 3 interventions, for example. The curriculum revision, it's a key thing. When the history department's using 23-year-old textbooks for American government, there's sort of an issue there. And then the long-term and capital plans, adequately funding them, basically making sure that we have that stable budget, because a lot of the things that are in there can't stay if we don't have steady funding. So the graduation requirements, for example, we lose those. And just because you get your accreditation doesn't mean you can then just take your foot off the pedal and let everything go for 10 years until your next report comes, because they do have a list of things that if you have a substantive change in your district, you need to report that to NEASC, and they will reassess your accreditation status. It includes things like elimination of fine arts, significantly decreased funding, cuts in the number of teachers or guidance counselors or student support staff, different student services, inordinate user fees. So any of those things can lead to you losing your accreditation. You can't just do everything really well for a year and then sit back for 9 years until your next self-study. So, but generally, it was a great experience. I have very much like working with NEASC. I've been the assistant chair on a couple of visiting teams in other districts. The process itself of taking your school and comparing it to this standard set that everybody should be measuring themselves against it's a valuable thing. And having outside people come in and kind of say, hey, this thing you're doing is really cool, and why don't you try this thing? It's a really great experience, and there's still work to be done.
Great.
So.
If I could just jump in, so Josh was talking about the changes. As the process was going along, when we had the budget shortfalls and the cuts and the changes, I did submit that information to NEASC. So they were aware over the years of the increase in the user fees, the reduction in teaching staff. So we were obligated to continue to turn that information into them. And part of it was, on budget cuts and so on and so forth. He mentions the 21st century learning expectations. We do have them. We do assess the students. We do it in IPASS, but unfortunately, we probably should have asked IPASS before we did it as to whether or not we could get the information back out of IPASS, which we can't. So we need to come up with a better plan. The assessment is being done. We just can't pull the information out from IPASS. They just don't have a way for us to get the data. So which percentage of students are writing effectively, which percentage are not writing effectively. But I think it's important that this information continue to be shared with the community. I think there's a perception that because we had the override that we're good to go, and I think we've all realized over the last budget process, last two budget processes, that we're not at that point. There's a lot of things that we still need to do, like Josh mentioned. I think we wrote the book on how to make people do more than one thing and how to stretch a dollar. What's the expression? Take a dime and...
In Douglas, take a dime and turn it into a dollar.
Take a dime and make it a dollar.
We're too poor to buy cheap stuff.
That's correct. That's the other expression.
Too poor to buy cheap stuff.
Those are our slogans. But I think in accolades to Josh and the staff, I think one thing, and Josh and I have had a lot of conversations around NEASC, obviously picking up from when I was the principal to what now he's in there. I think there's one key piece to this, is I think that I'm hoping that it was an eye-opener for the faculty to understand that a lot of the things that we were talking about, and Mr. Socia was part of the staff back in the day when we talked about these things, like professional learning communities, informative assessments, and so on and so forth, that they are critical, they are important components to what we do in our building, and I'm hoping that there'll be greater buy-in going forward, less reluctance to engage in that kind of work.
Yeah, it's just what professional educators do these days, and sometimes you need somebody from the outside to come in and remind you.
I know there was something else I wanted to mention, is the importance of the committee approving the department chairs coming back with the budget shortfall, which is a critical piece to all the things that you're looking to do with regards to your common planning time, with regards to textbook ordering and so forth. So again, we're fortunate that we're able to bring those positions back. Again, you have to cut somewhere, and we tried to stay out of the classroom as best we could.
That actually would be a substantive change we'd have to report to them.
No question.
Losing those chairs. So.
And we did report all the other ones that Josh has already mentioned.
So, okay. Any more questions on NEASC?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Do they give you any sense of what they're looking for in the 2-year report, for especially those last 2 bullet points, which are challenging?
They're challenging. They're not really
Right?
things that are in my hands, you know.
Right.
So what they're looking for is that have we as a district administrative team, have we communicated to the town our budget needs? Whether they get filled or not, that's beyond our control. But have we articulated to them what our budget needs are, made a strong case for them, and have we contributed to the capital plan? That's what they're looking for. That we can document that we asked them for this, you know, and it's just a matter of what efforts have we taken to try to raise awareness of it is what they're looking for. They know that that's not necessarily in our hands. And a lot of districts will use NEASC, having this outside agency come in and say, do you need more money for your schools? You know, it's unfortunate, you know, this is America in 2019, and money buys opportunity, and opportunity includes education. And, you know, if you don't invest in the schools, you're not creating opportunities for students. So it's not really shattering anybody's bubbles about the American dream, I don't think, but it's the reality. The more you invest in your schools, the higher quality your schools are going to be. On that somber note, let's look at something great.
Yeah.
Our AP results.
Yeah.
So Advanced Placement is a program that is run by the College Board. They're the same fine folks that do the SATs. Advanced Placement courses, students who are enrolled in them will, at the end of the course, it's a college-level course, and they take a test at the end, run by the College Board. And if they get a 3 or higher, they're scaled 1 to 5. If they get a 3 or higher, many colleges will give them college credit. We knocked this out of the park, and we have been for a very long time. So if we look at our yearly AP enrollment totals, so if you go back about 12 years ago, we had about 53 kids enrolled in, or 53 seats in AP courses. So, you know, a kid could be taking 5 courses, or at that time, probably 3. When Mr. Maines was here, he worked with a group called MIMSI. They call them something different now.
Massachusetts Math Science Initiative, which was a shell of Bill Gates in the Shell company, which is how we brought all the AP courses here.
And that just exploded the amount of opportunities we had for our kids to take those courses. And they did come through with a lot of funding and professional development for teachers, and it really opened up our AP accessibility. From there, the performance that the students have, that falls on I think, the teachers who are teaching those courses and some pretty darn good kids who are taking them.
I would just note on the enrollment as well, you can see we kind of peaked at 202.
Yep.
Enrollment, and down to 169 now, but I'm sure as a percentage of students, it's probably higher.
It's
Right.
a very high.
Was a high number, and
Peak
that was
number
one of our higher
as well,
enrollments at that point in time as well.
We were probably at 14, 15,
And
14 something.
it really looks like the 160 area is where I think we'll be going forward. That seems to be a pretty good number, I think.
It's a very high percentage compared to other schools, and part of that is because we have a very open policy, and College Board encourages and demands an open policy towards AP courses. We don't say to a kid who wants to sign up for an AP course, you know, you may not be able to do this. We don't pad the numbers by only putting in the good kids that we know are going to pass. We pretty much let anybody take an AP course, and because the opportunity to take it, the exposure to that material and that challenge, even if you get a 2 on the test or a 1 on the test, you still participated in that curriculum. And that's pretty important to us. And so I think that is another reason why those numbers are so high.
That happened with the MIMSI
Yep.
process. That was the selling point, that for us to do this, we would have to take away, because prior to that, and Josh was not here, there were prerequisites and there were contingencies for you to get in there. And really, it was the top, 2 or 3% of the school. And it was a radical shift, and Cindy, you were here for that, so you remember, it was a tough sell. But what made it work was the kids performed so well that there was no question about it any longer, and it's never been a problem since then.
Yep. So it's Massachusetts outperforms the rest of the country, and in a lot of and the United States outperforms the rest of the world, and in a lot of places DHS outperforms Massachusetts even, and that's really encouraging. We'll look at the actual breakdowns of it, but on the other slides. But there's a lot of areas where we far outperform the state average. In the areas where we're not, some of those are really tough tests. Some of those are tests where the curriculum has changed, and we've only recently been able to upgrade our materials to meet that. So they still represent some improvements. If you look at like U.S. history, for example, that's still an improvement, even though it's below the state average. It's an improvement over last year's. We didn't offer AP Physics this year. That's coming back next year. And we did have 2 students who took AP Music Theory. One scored a 5, it's the highest score. The other one scored a 2, and they did that as an independent study.
Is global truly global?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Global as related to the College Board. In other words, they have to be working with the College Board. Not everybody in the world. It's just that those countries that utilize the College Board. Because there's other assessments that they use.
AP Language and Composition, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail or anything. 50%, by the way, is a high pass rate for an AP course. They're not designed to be like everybody should pass these things. It's a college level course that you're taking as a junior in high school or a senior in high school. So AP Language and Composition, this is what juniors take for their English class if they're in an AP, if they're doing AP. It's a great course to help them out with college. An 82% success rate and very high numbers of kids taking it. Is very well done. That's Emily Costa and Christopher Petrelli who taught that. AP Lit, also very high, 71%. That's Emily Mayo. A lot of colleges will not give somebody credit for both language and lit. They'll only give them credit for one. So a lot of seniors will opt to, instead of taking AP Lit, they'll take a different AP course instead of having 5 AP courses, which would be a lot. This is one where they choose, well, I'm not going to get credit for in college anyway, but it's a great course. AP Chemistry, this was a big improvement over the previous year on our AP Chem rates. Again, it's a small group, but one of the best things that's going into this for next year is that there's stability. Every AP teacher is returning and teaching the same AP courses, so that stability helps.
Josh,
Great.
Could you go back to that one for just one second? So just a quick point is that Emily is now, I think, she finished her 3rd
Just
year.
finished her 3rd, yeah.
And so Emily, when we hired her, and Desi was there when we hired her, we hired her as a biology teacher. But then we needed a chemistry teacher, and she had a minor in chemistry. So naturally, I made her the chemistry teacher. And she did it without any reluctance. She went and took the training program, and here she is now within 2 years at 50% success rate, and she's a biology teacher, and she's done a great job with the program. And I remember when we first started, and Cindy, you were there, we had a chemistry teacher who had been here for a number of years. First year he did the AP chemistry, he had a 0% success rate. The next year it was 50. The teachers need to learn what's expected in the test and how to best teach it to get the kids prepared for the test.
Yep.
And Emily's done a really, really nice job, and I just wanted to mention.
She really has. Yep. She's a fabulous teacher. AP Biology, Jeff Thayer knocked it out of the park, 89%. Only one student didn't pass. That's fantastic. AP Environmental, those scores are up. AP Environmental is a big one that for kids who are maybe not necessarily a guaranteed success on it, a lot of them will still take the AP Environmental. It's a high interest sort of thing. His numbers are really high in there. That's still a pretty good success rate. Maybe the shining star, Carolyn Brainey, who does our AP Calculus. Calc AB, 82% success rate. Her BC was 100%. So now that's math levels that, I don't know, I didn't even know these things existed. If you can do that stuff, you can send rockets to Mars or something. But
Yeah, and that's the second year that she's offered the AP Calculus BC, and she's 100% for 2 years. But Josh, the 82% in the Calc AB is a really, really strong number for that type of a really challenging test.
So our calc program is fantastic. We're not offering BC this year. We didn't have enough kids. I think there's 2 kids. We're going to do it as an independent study. But AP Stats, so this is another one where we get a lot of students who it's a real stretch for them to take an AP course. But stats has become so important in college. So if you're going to school for behavioral sciences, for example, colleges really encourage statistics. And so I've talked to the department about maybe we should offer a college prep stats because, you know, we're of the mind that we'd rather a kid took the course, get a 1 or a 2 on the test, but you've taken the course before you go into college. I think if we were offering a CP level, you know, we could maybe give something that's more rigorously appropriate for some of the students who are really stretching themselves. Mr. Reardon does a great job working with all those kids to make sure they're getting something out of it.
Do we have any follow-up on, you know, even though we don't have the huge pass rate here, how those kids are doing once they get to college with it? And do we have any
I'll have to find out. Yeah, I think
that?
when we do our alumni day, I'll ask how the kids are doing with it, the kids who are in there. Government politics, Mr. Leonard, fabulous job, 75%. He does a great job. AP Micro, this is a tough exam. A small group, 1 kid basically bailed out in October. That's one of the ones. So it really is 2 out of 4 on that one. AP US, this is another tough test, and this is one of the ones, it's a big improvement. We were only about 20% last year. So it is a big improvement. We got new textbooks. I think that helped. There's been some changes to that test, and I think that we've had to kind of keep up on it, but it's made a big impact to have those new tests. Spanish language and culture, I think we were at 0 last year on this one. Mr. Tandy came in, took it over, has done a great job, and his numbers are actually quite high for next year. So that program's doing well. So the bottom line, 169 exams taken, 107 qualifying scores, 63% pass qualification rate. Last year was 50%. So now just to sort of put things in perspective, it may never be this high again. 63% is huge. 2/3 of your kids that sit down to take a test and get those qualifying scores, we may never have that again, but this is fantastic, especially when you consider how open we are with the enrollment of it and the number of kids that are sitting down and taking 4 or 5 of these things, or even the kids who are just taking 1. Next year we're adding AP Computer Science. It's done as a hybrid course with Microsoft and then Ed LaChapelle doing the classroom piece of it. So what has really come down to is, and I think maybe Mr. Maines, you'd agree, there aren't too many more courses that we could add. The kids that are in those core courses.
We, I mean, when I can remember when we first started this, telling people that we were offering 12 APs, and they would say,
Yeah.
Douglas, 12 APs, 12 different APs you could
We had
take.
4 in my high school.
Right. So, exactly. And so there really aren't, I mean, and we've provided opportunities, AP Psychology on VHS, the AP Music Theory on VHS. So we also are willing to let them use a seat in VHS to take an AP course that we know we just cannot offer and so forth. But this all plays into the whole thing about the Blackstone Valley that we've talked about trying to share and so forth. That's a couple of years down the road. I think it's going to happen, but it's a couple of years down the road. I would say that since we did MIMSI, which I think was about 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I'd say, Josh, we're pretty. If you did the numbers, crunch the numbers, I would say that that's probably where we've been, 60 to 63%.
You know, I think you're right, actually, as I look back at the old data.
Yeah. I would say it's pretty. Last year was the first year I remember being below 60.
Yeah.
60%.
But just to maybe put that in comparison to other districts.
Oh, there's a lot of districts that would jump through the roof to get 60% success rate
Well, I
on
think the
their APs
interesting
and
part
enrollments.
that you mentioned, I'd love to see maybe some statistics on, you know, again, the openness of our enrollment in this.
Yeah.
Because it's not just our top, 5-10% of students taking these
absolutely not.
classes, So and I think a lot of districts that probably is the case. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Some districts do still keep the doors really closed. We have in the past presented a comparison of our AP scores, pass rate versus other districts, and that information isn't on the DESE website. I did check because I knew it was going to look really good for us.
Other districts, but even just the percentage of our students that are taking AP courses.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I think we probably discussed it at some point last year.
We have, yeah.
But to pair that up with this data as you present
it's over 50% of each graduating class, I think, has taken at least one. So.
Yep. And I did do a complete analysis of the area 2 years ago, over a 10-year span, and we match up with virtually everybody. The stronger of the schools would be Sutton,
Nipmuc, I think,
Nipmuc,
was strong, yeah.
Hopedale, and us. Those were the four, and we were right there with all of them across the board.
Well, now you have me curious with the comment that you made before about the male to female ratio. What does that look like in the APs?
It's dominated by girls. It's absolutely, boys are highly underrepresented in these courses, and so it's something that we, but I've looked at it that coming in as freshmen, the disparity is actually bigger. There are, we have more boys taking honors level as seniors than we do as freshmen. So somewhere along the way, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, I don't know if it's a maturity thing, somewhere along the way, we're picking up better numbers. There's still a huge disparity, but it's better at senior year than it is at freshman year.
I think, this sounds like a district-wide thing. Again, just anecdotally, I know my daughter is doing well in the 7th grade. I think she's in the higher level classes, and I think her class is pretty much dominated, females as well. So it's just,
I think what happens is, I think, as I've been going through the data, like I see boys recommended for honors. Coming from 8th grade to 9th grade, and they opt to take college prep. And I think they come up and they kind of realize, like, oh yeah, I could have taken honors, So then it sort of adjusts itself sophomore year, but it's not enough to kind of catch up in the end.
I remember cold calling parents and saying, your son was recommended for honors English, but he's in college prep. Oh yeah, that's where he's okay in there. No, challenge him. You can always go down. Yeah. You can always go down if you have to. So.
Yep. Any other questions about AP?
no?
All right, I got one more, and I don't need multimedia for this one. So with the NEASC, the requirements of the special report and the 2-year report for NEASC, I made some changes to the school improvement plan to incorporate those things into it. So not much came out, but some things came in to address those things. I think in your copy they're the highlighted things. I mean, it's grayscale, but it includes ways to minimize the amount of time that students flex out of class so that they're getting more class time. So we've made some changes to how that procedure is going to go, working with Mr. Nash. I put in the piece about the goal on formative assessment use. Some other collaborative things that we can use with that common planning time. So I'll do some training with the staff on things like lesson study, which is it's a collaborative process for teachers where one teacher will bring in an assessment that they want to use or a lesson that they want to use. And they present it to the other teachers analyze it with them, offer suggestions, and in the end, the teacher comes out with a stronger assessment. The teacher comes out with a stronger lesson plan. So those types of collaborative practices that we can use to strengthen our common planning time. The NEASC itself is a bullet in there. Structuring our social emotional learning interventions and supports, I think we need to kind of formalize that and make it something concrete so that if we need to go to bat to keep the funding coming for it, we have something solid to say for it, and that is my doctoral dissertation topic, so I gotta stick that one out.
Romano, huh?
Well, we'll see. You just call me Colonel. And that's coming too. And then we've made some changes to our advisory to incorporate more of the social emotional learning, dealing with anxiety, dealing with study skills and organizational skills and things like that. We're going to incorporate some more of those into advisory, and along with some more free advisory days where teacher's choice, and kind of open up some options for them. So just to give you I made those updates because we got the plans approved and then the letter came in a week later. So.
Which I'm glad you updated it, linking it directly to some of the NEASC things, which will keep it always on the front burner, which is important.
It also becomes part of the evidence that we submit with the reports. So, when you ask how we demonstrate that we're doing these things, that becomes part of it. So, do they need to vote on it, Mr. Maines?
We're looking to have this.
Actually, you would need. I should have put that on the consent probably because
yeah.
It is. Well, it's an amendment of your original document.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It is.
I think we'd be voting to do an amendment.
We can take it out of order. We can take it now. It's on the agenda now, so we can vote it anytime we want. So I'd be looking for a motion on this topic.
I move to approve the revised Douglas High School 2019-2020 school improvement plan.
We have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No one is opposed or.
Thank you.
So.
I think I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Romano. Great job. Thank you for all
Thank you
your
very much.
information and all your help. The next thing I have is I want to update, tomorrow morning, right in this room, we will have new teacher orientation. So I want to update the committee on where we are at this point in time. I put a thing at your place. Carolyn Thompson has been hired as our new school psychologist. She has 9.5 years of experience. She's worked in Bellingham, Worcester, and Westboro. She has a bachelor's degree from URI and a master's from the University of New England, and also an advanced certificate in psychology. Looking forward to her joining us. She'll be, as you know, she'll be covering the 3 buildings, primary, elementary, and middle. Allison Bruner will be a special education teacher at the primary school. She has 7 years of teaching experience in Arizona, Ohio, and Massachusetts. Her husband has moved a lot, and now they have become pretty situated. She went to the University of Toledo. She had her bachelor's there in exercise science. Her master's is in special education. Ariana Bonina, who was a long-term sub last year in the kindergarten at the primary school, also had served as a paraprofessional at the primary school. She did her bachelor's at Assumption and her master's, bachelor's in early childhood, master's in special education. Julie, is it Uyghurs or Weigers?
No, Fredericks.
That's easy.
That's spelled funny.
Julie Fredericks was appointed to a kindergarten position. This is her first full-time teaching experience, if I'm not mistaken. She attended Calvin College. That was in Wisconsin and Michigan.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Bachelor's in early education, so she just graduated. We hired Emily Peak to be the .5 pre-K teacher. I believe that's correct. She does have some experience in Oxford. She graduated from Worcester State with a bachelor's in early education. And a nurse at the primary, Jennifer Walker. She has 1 year of experience over in Blackstone. She also had been a long-term sub as a nurse here, and her degree is from Rhode Island College. At the elementary school, and I should mention that Mr. Bell is out. His son had some surgery today. He couldn't join us tonight. David, I want to say it's Moniz, but it might be Moniz. But it's David Moniz is our new music teacher at the elementary and primary school. He does have teaching experience in Bourne and in Fall River. His degree is a Bachelor in Music Education from Rhode Island College, and he has his master's degree from Boston University in music education. Allison Keiko will be the 4th grade teacher, replacing Mrs. Whoopio. I'm sorry. We've been hiring a lot of people. I should show you the page, but she did the long-term sub the second half of the year at the elementary school. She's a graduate of Framingham State with a bachelor's in English and early education. Sean Morgan will be joining the elementary school as I think, grade 5 liaison, and he's a special education teacher. He, like Mr. Romano, has a military background, but has also been a long-term sub and an ABA therapist here in Douglas. His college was at UMass Dartmouth for a bachelor's in history. He also was got his master's from the University of Nottingham, and it was in international relations. And he also did, I forget, was it French Riverwood, or is it Becker? I forget where his special education CAGS was from.
I could make it up.
I don't remember where it was. I forgot to write that down. You should also know that Melissa Mulvar has moved from the primary school to the elementary school. She'll be taking grade 2. She's been in the district for a number of years. At the middle school, Mr. Delaney has hired Roshan Valapur to do special education. She has an ABA tech experience here in Douglas. She's a Springfield College graduate with rehabilitation and disability studies, and she has her master's in special education. At the high school, Annie DeWitt is filling the position of special education. She has an ABA therapist experience, and she was a half year as a classroom special education teacher at the elementary school last year, the second half of the year. She's a UMass graduate with a bachelor's in hospitality, and she has completed the special education cohort certification program that we offer through French River. And then Peter Manker is at the high school as well. He did a long-term sub last year for the entirety of the year. He has 3 years of experience teaching in a charter school, and his degree is from Boston University, a bachelor's in learning disabilities and education. So those are all of them. The only one we are waiting on is the recently approved STEM position. As Mr. Delaney has mentioned, he's begun the process of interviews. We're hoping to have that wrapped up sooner rather than later.
Is that our only open position?
Huh?
That's the only open position?
That's the only open teacher position we have.
Teaching.
Teaching, okay. Yeah, no, it's huge. Right.
And we don't have many paraprofessional or ABA positions available either. I think we're pretty,
Today, we have 4.5 ABAs
Okay.
open.
but we should say that we received 3 resignations this week from ABAs. Hence, we have 4.
Okay.
So
That's what I was going to be shocked if that was the only
Right.
one. So
Yeah.
that makes more sense, so,
we have
okay.
some young people to fill.
What a difference a day makes.
And then the last thing I have for you is, I'm sorry, I don't know if there's any questions on that. I jumped the gun.
No.
Okay. And then, Brett, you had asked if I could give you sort of an update as to where we're at with regards to enrollment, so I did provide you with an update. Pre-K presently has 60 students. It's hard to say, you can't really say it's 24 students per class because some are full day, some are half day, so on and so forth. Kindergarten, there are 95 students enrolled, an average class size of 19. And in the first grade, 92 students with an average class size of 23. At the elementary school, as of right now, there are 78 second graders, an average class size of just under 20. Third grade has 96, an average class size of 24. Fourth grade, 98, a class size of 24 and a half. And fifth grade, 90 for a class size of 22.5. All good numbers that I hope that the committee is happy with. At the middle school, grade 6 has 82 students with an average class size of 20.5. Grade 7 has 106 students with an average class size of 21.2. And then grade 8 has a total of 120 students with an average class size of 24. With the STEM position, the other important piece of that is that the related art class sizes will be down dramatically from where they were last year, much more manageable. I think wasn't it grade 6 that had 30 or so?
Such is the plan. We found a schedule glitch today. We do believe it will be resolved, but at this moment, that's not what the schedule says. It will be fixed. The plan is we have 4 related arts teachers and 80 kids. You should have a class of about 20.
Yeah.
So, just to clarify that.
That's the math that I can do, Mrs. Socia.
That's not what's in there right now. If it's not fixed by start of school, and they say, hey, what's with the 27 kids in a class, I just want to explain. I know it's high profile.
You work it out.
So,
At the high school, we obviously didn't do class sizes because they take different classes, but grade 9 has 83 students, which your promotion number last year was much lower than it had been in previous years, right? It was 125 or 30 a few years back. I think it was 100 last year, right?
Yep.
So 83 in grade 9, 95 in grade 10, 91 in grade 11, and 99 in grade 12. I think that's a modest increase as of right now in enrollment at the high school. Modest, but a little bit.
Yeah, but not by much.
Yeah.
How were our BVT and Norfolk numbers? Do we know?
Yeah, so I think they haven't changed.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that. I haven't heard of any additional changes on it, but I think it was 14 going to BVT, and I thought it was 4, maybe 5 at Norfolk Aggie.
Total.
But that's not new ones, 4 or 5 total
Total,
students.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
There was a couple of students that had already been there when they did graduate, 2 or 3 last year.
Great.
Yep. And that was everything that I had in my superintendent's report.
Okay. Any questions on any of that? Thanks a lot, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to our committee and subcommittee reports. So I will do Lisa's accounts payable report for her. So she has abandoned us this week to go off to lovely Canada. And the pictures do look lovely, so congratulations, Lisa. Is it just the single batch? Nope. Yeah, 1 day. So she had 7 batches signed last week in the total of $130,043.07. Yeah, nothing unusual to report there. So, details here if anyone would like them. I still owe the committee 2 reports, and again, my house is still in shambles from some work being done this summer, but it's coming to an end, I promise. So once that's to an end, I'll come back with a policy subcommittee report and a budget subcommittee report. So
I would suggest you just call Chip and Joanna and get them over there and get this thing taken care of.
My wife would have loved it, but, I think they're having some kind of conference down there. I'm gonna send her down there and get everything done now, so. But All right, so we'll move on to our consent agenda. I don't think we're gonna have our meeting minutes. I don't see them here, so they weren't in the packet initially. All right, have they seriously shown up? No, okay.
I think there was a note that she
Okay,
sent out.
so we will not have our meeting minutes, so we'll skip over that. So next up, we have our Douglas Public Schools disposal request.
It's actually the primary school, I believe. isn't it?
Primary school, sorry, not
So-
public schools, yeah. So,
I don't have the list, do I have the list in front of me? I can read it.
no, it
me
looks
just
like
find it.
we've
Yep,
just
here we
got
go.
a bunch of equipment.
Yep. Yeah,
that is
so
no
there's,
longer
there's,
use.
there's a room in the primary school.
His favorite room.
It's sort of like, in my house, it's the third drawer down in the kitchen where everything
Yeah.
finds its place. Unfortunately, it has all found its way into Mrs. Socha's building, and the reason was because when they were doing the building project, they moved it, they had to put it someplace, and there was an open room, so tag, she was it. But there is a bunch, Cindy, you want to
Now
come
you
up
need the
and
room, so.
share with us what you're talking about disposing, but there are things that have been there for quite a period of time.
Yes.
And I do have the list, it is here if you,
Yeah, we've got it. here, so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't even walk in this room at one point. It was that bad. So things have been there for quite some time, things that are just, we've taken 2 cafeteria tables and taken every seat off of them to replace broken seats on the seats that we have. And, every screw, bolt that you could possibly take off of, we've used them for parts.
They've been fully cannibalized.
They have been.
just like the ones at the high school that we
Right.
got rid of last time. They've been cannibalized.
Right.
no question.
These wooden cubbies that we had, I mean, we don't need those. They've been sitting in there. They're probably from the old school that doesn't exist anymore. That would be my guess. TV carts, student chairs, we've gone to all the plastic. They're easier to clean. And the chairs are the old, heavy metal.
Rusted and so forth.
Yeah, rusted. So we're looking to clean out that room a little bit so that we can walk in there. And what's left in there is really tables now that if we needed to make another classroom, that we have the right furniture to put that classroom together.
And you're out of rooms at this point, so you really need to, at
Well,
some point, we're gonna need to get that room
I've
freed up.
got 1 or 2 in holding right now that they didn't go this year, but they might next year.
All right.
It does break my heart to see TV carts on there, but
I
those are
know.
somewhat antiquated.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you used to have to sign out for it.
Oh, yeah.
People didn't worry whether they signed out, they would sneak it, and you'd be running down the hallway with your cart to get it to your classroom and bring it in.
How about the chalkboards? We
Of course,
still
that
have,
was after the
I
film
saw
strip
that.
projector.
we still have chalkboards
Nostalgia
in our
for that.
building. Most of them have whiteboards over them, but we still have chalkboards.
All right. So,
Yeah, and there's a chalkboard on there. so
Yes.
It's an old chalkboard.
Yes.
all right, so we've got some language for a motion here. Someone would like to be so inclined?
I move to approve the disposal of items of no value that are no longer useful at the primary school as itemized on the attached DPS list of items of no value for disposal.
Motion from Becky,
Second.
and second from Kelly. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank
Any
you.
opposed or abstained? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mrs. Socha.
Next up, we have 2 additional staffing requests. One in elementary school, one at the high school, both ABA therapists.
Mrs. Erica
Will
will share
join
with
us.
us.
I must ask, whose idea was this? I like it.
Yeah, we never really did have a
Mr. No?
a tablecloth. I don't know where it came from.
think
Personally, I would
it's-
have ironed it for you, but
It's a nice addition, very classy,
I would have.
match.
Towel down the beach last year.
You know what? It might be. That's okay. So we have 2 friends that are going to be joining us, 2 kids that have enrolled in the district, one being at the elementary school, one being at the high school. Laura and I have had the opportunity to meet both of the students as well as with the student at the elementary school conduct an informal assessment with Mr. Bell and Mr. Aronian to make sure that we got the exact placement for the student correct. The student from the elementary school has been a resident of Douglas and has been a homeschool student. The student enrolled with us just a couple of weeks ago, and the student does have intensive special needs. In consideration of the student's IEP that was created through the program that she was using for the homeschool education, as well as the informal assessment. We do feel that a 1 to 2 ABA should be a part of the student's educational program in consideration of safety and the student accessing the education. The reason that we are proposing a 1 to 2 for the student as opposed to a 1 to 1 is that, and I'm going to get into as much as I can without sort of getting into confidentiality issues. The student presents as a student who will have an opportunity to pair with another student that could potentially have a 1 to 2. At this time, we do not have a student that has a 1 to 2 at the elementary school that could be paired, but we do feel that this is a student that would not solely need a 1 to 1, if that makes sense. Does this whole concept make sense?
So initially will be a 1 to 1 just by the nature of not having
by the nature of not having another 1 to 2. But if somebody, let's say, moved in, or another homeschool student did come, or somebody else qualified that needed a 1 to 2, we could have a pairing. So that is a student at the elementary school. Then we have a student at the high school. The student was accepted as a school choice student and does reside in Webster. The student has intensive special needs and requires a 1 to 2 ABA pursuant to the service delivery grid on the IEP from Webster. Mr. Maines actually had an opportunity to meet the student today as well, and think the student's going to be a very welcome addition to the high school and potentially could be a part of the cupcake making business.
The bad crew.
So, the bad crew. So now I'll move to Mrs. Keegan to go over the financial impact.
Okay, so the financial impact for the two ABAs would be for each one going by a D1, so it may be less than that, but $25,429, and that would be a total for the two of them of $50,858. The recommended funding source at this time is the Circuit Breaker Revolving Fund. And as you recall, when we were going through the FY 2020 budget process and with our subcommittee meetings and committee meetings, that's why we had so much more we took from school choice. We certainly wanted to be very cognizant that we know that changes can be made throughout the school year that we have no control over with regard to special education, so we do have funding available. And if you were to approve it this evening, the projected year-end fund balance after taking into consideration the $50,858 would be $723,866, and that's after the carryover from the closeout of FY19, and that's also after incorporating everything that has been applied as offsets to the FY20 general fund budget as well. Okay.
Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. If not, I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the addition of 2 applied behavior analysis analysts, ABAs, for the total estimated amount of $50,858 to be paid from the Circuit Breaker Revolving Fund.
Okay. Motion from Kelly.
Second.
And a second from Becky. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. So that completes our consent agenda. We'll now move on to our school business and operation manager's report.
Okay, we have
Items for us here.
quite a bit this evening. So I guess I will start with, the 2019 year-end transfers, the reclassifications, I should say, first, and then the year-end year-end transfers. So I do have everything, I believe, in order that I put in front of you. So the first, we have the 2019 year-end reclassification number 2. And what this is we're required for any unpaid school lunch, it needs to be funded. That's the law that was passed several years back. If you recall, several years back, we had to come up with 21,000 plus for past years from the general fund, but this is a very small balance. We've come a long, long, long way. We're really doing excellent. And, as you know, we do send out many letters, throughout weeks, months, as far as coming from each school, but I also send out collection letters as well towards the end of the year. But this is what we ended up with. So it's reclassing food purchases. This is the recommended way from DESE to do it. So we're basically just reclassing that dollar amount from food services in the school lunch revolving fund into the general fund, basically to make the school lunch revolving fund whole for that uncollected amount. That's basically how that works. So does anybody have any questions with regard to that?
Okay.
But we're very pleased with the collections.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's very hard, it's very difficult, as I'm sure I've said it in the past, nationwide with regard to school lunch. It's really hard to keep it, you know,
Yep.
in balance and all, so we do make every effort, though. Okay. Did you want to take these one at a time, Brett? Probably like we usually do. Yes,
Yeah, let's
that
do
would be
that.
the best thing to do,
Yeah.
yep.
So we'll be looking for a motion to approve the FY 2019 year-end reclassification number 2 for school committee meeting August 14th, 2019.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Becky.
Second.
A second from Kelly. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none. Okay, all set.
Okay, thank you very much. The next one is the FY 2019 year-end reclassifications number 3, and this is reclassifying expenditures from school choice, from the, geez, I'm getting confused now, yeah. From the school choice account into the general fund to bring the general fund down to 0, which we've been doing for many years. So basically, I take the highest ones to make it as simple as possible.
Okay.
So that's what that is. So we did have a year-end balance of $358,689.13. So we reclassed all of that. So of course, that increased our school choice revolving fund carryover balance, which was good, especially since we dipped into it so much. But actually, that's looking, we'll get into that in a few minutes. I went over it a little bit a couple of weeks ago, remember, but there's good news there, which is good.
Good. Any questions on these? Okay. So we'll be looking for a motion to approve the FY 2019 year-end reclassifications number 3, school choice, for school committee meeting August 14th, 2019. Motion from Kelly and a second from Becky. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next one down is the 547 entries for transfers. And this is something, it's funny, I was talking about this, and, Jean and I are so much alike. We have to do this, but it's probably not another business manager that does it in the state. It's a lot of work. It's only to clean it up and make it look pretty. Doesn't change a thing with any balances, but we just have to do it. So basically, it's moving all of the, any positive ends and the negatives, so that the report that you're going to see henceforth is going to be a nice, pretty report with no minuses in it. That's all it does. It's it doesn't do anything else but that. So does anyone have any questions on that?
I do not. Anyone else have questions? Becky's probably the first time you're seeing these kinds of.
Yeah, that's all it does. Moves minuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, pluses and minuses. We do this every year. That's all it does. It doesn't change anything whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. It just pretties up the report so that when I run the general fund report that you see down here, you don't see that the available budget is minus and plus and plus and minus throughout the 29
I love a
pages.
pretty report.
So I don't know. It's just probably the only ones in probably the United States that does this, but I don't know. Jean and I are so much alike. It's just we just have to do it. I don't know. We might stop doing it at some point, but probably not. Anyway, did you have any more questions, Becky, about that, or?
Okay.
That's all it does. Okay.
There is no other discussion. We'll be looking for a motion to approve the FY 2019 year-end transfers for school committee meeting August 14th, 2019.
So moved.
Motion from Becky.
Second.
A second from Kelly. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none.
Thank you very much. And the next report is basically your year-end summary report. It's a fund balance report as of June 30th, 2019. Becky, I know it's the first time that you're seeing this. So basically, this is after we have reconciled with the town accountant, and you'll see on the third page that we both sign it. Every single grant, donation, revolving fund, donation account in the general fund has been reconciled to the penny. So we have this report that we create summarizing everything. We also use this for the auditors as well, but that way you see every single fund, the balance brought forward for revolving funds, donations, and grants if it's a prior year grant, the new grants, and then on the very top we have the general fund budget and activities. So, and it does list the encumbrances as well. So the key ones that I usually go over every year, school choice, because of the reclassifications, our expenditures that ended up being in school choice for FY19 was only $286,075.97. So our carryover balance, and I did go over this with you when we were approving the positions, we have a nice healthy balance, which is great because, as you know, we dipped into that a lot as it was. So I think that sets us up very well in moving forward into preparing the FY21 budget, because as we all think prospectively, all of the leadership team, you know, superintendent, myself, and of course the school committee, I think we're all very good at looking at things prospectively as well. I do want to say, with regard to the carryover of the general fund, I mean, every year it does change, but I can tell you that all of the administrators are very careful. In fact, we're almost getting ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if you guys can think of a better word, but people, whether it be the secretaries, the principals, you know, the administrators, really think carefully. And I know for a fact that the secretaries, they'll look around for pricing, and they spend time doing that. I mean, everyone is very cognizant, regardless of the appropriation amount, that every dollar spent is taxpayer money, or not spending a dollar, that dollar can go towards something else. And I have a great appreciation, I know we all do, for the work that everybody puts into doing that, because that doesn't happen everywhere either. Right. No. Not to the extent as we do here. So that, you know, all of that did help us out as far as bringing the school choice ending balance to set us up better because of the great increase in utilization of it for FY20, but also looking forward ahead, because we need to do that because things will change as we move forward. Circuit breaker, again, we have a healthy carryover balance. We did know about what that was going to be. And by the way, we don't have any new news on the, you know, to give a definitive answer on the FY 2020 revenue. I will let you know immediately when we do get that. DESC will send that out. Usually they send out a preliminary in September, and they may update it, but it depends on the timing of when they get their job done, going through every single district. The preschool account, the next one down, you can see that has a very healthy fund balance there, ending at $89,747.61. The preschool, this is only the revolving fund, but I will be going over both school lunch and preschool in a few minutes to show you all of the funding sources, so you can see programmatically everything that it takes to run the preschool. But this is only the revolving fund, so it has a good, healthy balance there, which is really good, because carrying it forward, because as you know, we're utilizing more in order to get through the appropriation process and the FY20 budget. As you know, we did recommend utilizing more because Mrs. Socia did need some more staff for increasing her preschool program, which is wonderful that we could do that for the students. So that's looking very good. The athletic programs have a good, you know, balance moving forward as well. And as you know, in particular, the high school athletic program, we've gone through so many iterations. I know. You're very well aware of that, Kelly. So in FY16, you remember we pulled out all of the funding from the general fund. So we've been able to incorporate more funding in the general fund, but we also have a good amount with revolving fund with the fees. I think we're in a good place there. And again, that'll set us up, because we don't know what's going to happen for FY21. So it's setting us up better as well to handle some of those things. And also that athletic program revolving fund can also be used to fund athletic equipment or things like that, so that maybe, you know, they may not be aware that you needed something, but, you know, we can certainly, if you build up a good, healthy balance, that can be used for things such as that as well. Extended day, there's really nothing to say there. Facilities rental, really nothing there. The lost books and iPads, Chromebooks. They updated the Mass General Law. This is information for you as well, Becky. From like 50 years, it was only for lost books, and then they changed it to update it to include iPads and Chromebooks. Mm-hmm. So if there's anything lost or damaged, you know, the funding can go in there, and we can use that to make repairs, or to replace the lost books. Mm-hmm. In repairs as well, bindings. Chorus, not much there. Let's see. So the next one, big one down really, is the school lunch program. Again, I'll go over the actual trend history sheet in a little bit, but we have a fund balance anyway of $43,258.24. The fund balance itself is looking good. With regard to donations, the only thing I want to say there is that everybody has been very diligent in all of the schools, again, because of the funding. Everyone that has had any donations available to them within all of our buildings have been looking at that and trying to utilize every single penny they can. They've done a great job at that. On page 2, the top part is prior year grants. These are ones that there are many grants now that you can carry forward. They're 2-year grants, so if we applied for them or had them in prior years, it goes under this column here. And you can see that those have all been utilized, fully utilized. And the next one down are the current year grants for FY19. And most of those have been fully utilized. The largest ones that we have are the, which you hear about fairly often, are the Title I, the 305, and also the Special Ed Entitlement Grant, the 240. Particularly the 240, what we use that for is to offset special ed tuitions, typically at the high school, because that's the largest amount. And you do see that, and it is incorporated in the budget when we do the budget. Nothing really too big there. And down at the bottom, we have the 3 schools with regard to their student activity accounts. And in the past, I just had savings and checkings, and I don't know why I didn't do this in the past, but I added the totals line. So you'll actually see the totals. And these are certainly all reconciled as well with the town accountant. Each school does reconcile with the town accountant to the penny on those as well, both with the savings, the checkings, and the total amount in the overall student activity fund at each school. And I just have 2 notes there at the middle school. You do see a negative balance there. Occasionally that does happen, but that's absolutely was covered with a deposit in transit. And as you know, we did have a little bit of an issue there that we did resolve by reducing the 10,000 authorization down to the 7,500. We're absolutely fine there. And that's it. Didn't know if you had any other questions. And certainly if you do, when you have time to actually look at it, always feel free to give me a call, or if you want to stop by. Be happy to go over anything that you'd like me to.
That's good stuff. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Becky? Or okay, but again, if any time, please stop by if you have any questions. Okay. So the next one down is this is that trend history, because I think it's good for you guys to have. These are our 2 largest ones, the circuit breaker and the revolving fund. So these have been updated pursuant to the sheet that we just went over. But what you will see on here, and what I do, and as you know in the past, what I've done, is when you approve additional positions or expenditures to come out of these accounts, and I did, and I don't usually do this, I do apologize, I did minus out, just so you could see if you approve tonight the 2 ABAs. I don't usually ever presuppose, as you well know, but I just wanted you to see what the balance would be. So that is going forward, and just so you know, so in that FY19, it's all actuals. I change it from projections to actuals. And then I italicize, of course, the FY20, because it's always projections for the italicize. And this will be updated when I get further information regarding the revenue in particular. So that's where we stand right now for FY19 and 20 for circuit breaker. And these are updated fairly regularly throughout the year. The next one is school choice revolving. And it's bringing forward, as have the actual for 2019, bringing forward the new fund balance beginning the year for FY20. I have incorporated, I did bring forward, and this we did discuss at the last meeting when we approved the 151,000. I did bring forward what we're getting in FY19. And I feel comfortable doing that, but I may just, we'll see as things go. But right now, I do know that we do have even more school choice that have applied. Yeah. So I'm just carrying forward what the revenue was in FY19. And as you see, I incorporated the planned expenditures of the $1,246,000, and I already have in there the additional school committee approved, the $151,319, bringing it down to $1,401,346. Again, I think we've all been very judicious and, carefully planned, and really, I think all of us, I think we do a wonderful job. I know I keep saying that, but I've worked in many places over 26 years, and I think we do a fabulous job here in being very deliberate as a leadership team in our discussions and under, Mr. Main's leadership and, with you as a school committee. I think we're in very good stead for moving forward into preparing our FY21 budget as well.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I would just say that with that school choice balance in particular, you know, again, if there are, you know, the things that we need versus, you know, positions, you know,
Right.
that we should, you know, be taking care of those things with that kind of balance right now, you know, if it's books or whatever it might be.
We have a
So
couple
I'm
things.
assuming you are, but
We
you know,
have a couple
I just want to
But
kind
I'm
of
so glad to hear you
reiterate my
say that.
feelings on that from, you know,
Okay.
that I expressed during the budget
Yeah.
process. You know,
We do
so.
actually have a few building things that have come up that really do need to be addressed, and a couple of other things that Mr. Maines and I have discussed,
Yeah.
but we've got time. There's
Yeah.
nothing that's an emergency, but,
Yeah.
well,
Good.
one of them is a little bit of one, but that will be coming forward actually on September 4th.
Okay.
Isn't everything an emergency? Okay. The next one down I have for you is I call it FY19 because we're finishing out that 19 year. But as you can see, I'm showing you the school lunch program. School lunch program is very complicated. There's a lot involved in it. It's very hard to keep financially sustainable. So anywhere I've been, I've created this, and I think it's a good thing to see at a glance where we are. One thing I do want to point out, this does have all the figures for FY19 actual. Except in more detail, as you can see, with regard to the specific areas of revenue and the specific areas of expenditure. So there's a lot more detail here. As you can see, the one thing here, revenue, the expenditures did outpace revenue. We do have a healthy fund balance, but certainly you do usually like to see, of course, revenue covering your expenditures for that year. But, you know, that has happened a number of times in the past. I'm not concerned about it. We do still have a very healthy balance. Particularly if you look at, you know, some of the earlier years too, particularly FY 2012. So, and we have some additional data there that I do provide. So you can kind of see the trend of participants and you know, percentage of free versus reduced and things of that nature I provide as well. Again, I know you're just getting it now. It's kind of hard to look at all that at one time, but I did want to bring that to your attention as far as the revenue not meeting the expenditures. Does anyone have any questions now on that, or? Okay, I know it's a lot to look at. If you do it any time, please let me know.
No, they can get it. It's taken me 3 years, but you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff, yeah. The next one down is a preschool program. This is a little bit more complicated. Same look as the school lunch, bringing forward the prior year fund balance. You have the tuition, late fees, all of the expenditures broken out. There aren't too many expenditure categories, as you can see within that program, and some other data. The only thing different here is there are 3 funding sources that fund the preschool program. So the top part is just a revolving fund. And then down below, I'm showing you what we incorporate in the budget from the general fund. It's important to see those ebbs and flows of how we're having to shift funding sources. And also, we have the 262 special ed grant that funds part of it. And it's good to see as well how that's been reduced, as all our grants have been reduced. And you can see how general fund funding has gone up. And the grant has been reduced, not a lot, but it has been a reduction. And then at the very bottom, just showing you what it costs overall to fund the entire preschool program from the 3 funding sources, which has been fairly consistent. As you can see, you know, there really have not been any large, of course, we do know there will be an FY20, but the expenditures have been pretty steady throughout the years. Right. So, and we do have a very healthy fund balance there. And what the wonderful thing about that is, as we all know, we all feel is very good for our students to have the preschool experience, because that helps tremendously in going from K all the way up through 12 to start them off right with preschool. So maybe we will need to empty out another classroom, but the good thing is we have a healthy fund balance here to utilize as well. Does anyone have any questions regarding the preschool?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and then the only one is the pretty general fund budget report. As you can see, there's all zeros at the end. Okay, so basically at the very end, you will see. Oh, I forgot to do, because I finished this up kind of late. I'm sorry, I forgot to minus out. So at the very end, unfortunately, it includes that transportation. And usually, what I would have done is I'll have to do it over because this will bug me. Is I'll minus out all the transportation lines. I'll have to put it in pencil. I don't know why it's set up that way, but it is. So I will do that for you. And we had a little bit of a balance left in the transportation, just $6,072.45. And of course, Jean will take care of that when she closes out the entire books, because that's a town, really a town account, a separate appropriation, I should say. So there you go. So you have all kinds of things. If you're having any trouble sleeping this evening,
Yeah.
you have a lot to put you out. It'll knock you out within 5 minutes, I can assure you.
It'd keep you up all night.
Yes, exactly. Actually, yeah, Jean and I are like that,
A
yeah.
little more involved in my
Yeah.
checkbook.
Yeah. But before I end with this, I want to thank profusely because everyone works with us. All of our, the principals, the secretaries in particular, administrators, and especially my staff. They did a fabulous job in closing out, and also Jean and her staff. Jean in particular, working with my staff. I mean, it's just a wonderful working relationship. We appreciate that, and everybody did a wonderful job, and I appreciate that as well. Because I can't do my job without everybody doing a wonderful job, so.
That includes everyone here in the audience too. It's, we all know that it doesn't work unless everyone's working together on it, so thank you all for that.
And the only other thing I have under the school business, I know everybody was dying to jump up and go, but, so as you know, August unfortunately started recently and threw everybody into a tizzy district-wide. So just a couple of updates on transportation, school transportation. So tomorrow, we will be posting the new routes, because we actually, we weren't gonna post what we got, because we really couldn't do that.
Yep.
So we rewrote the ones we had, so everybody will seeing something that's very familiar to them.
Okay.
And I want to thank the new Telstone manager, Jessica, who actually came down and sat with me, because we needed to do that. We went over it, so it worked out wonderful.
Great.
I actually create a letter as well, just a simple little explanatory letter, nothing big. We will be doing a one call, because we think that will be good to let them know that it's at the schools and on the website. It's coming out a little bit later.
Yep.
The other thing I want to let you know is that I did speak with Mr. Means about this. We have authorized Telstone to have another bus and a driver on standby for the first day. We're very concerned. One bus in particular had 11 kindergarten students alone on just that one bus.
Okay.
So for the cost of that would be $390. We feel it's definitely worth that to not have complete upheaval if anything comes up. That way, if a bus is full, we just they'll dispatch and go pick up the child. So we don't want anybody's day to start off on the wrong foot.
Yep.
Or anything. We thought that was a reasonable thing to do.
Okay.
So we think everything's in good stead. We'll just wait and see what happens with regard to capacities and everything. But we've done everything we can, and so I think we'll.
Thank you for that update.
Yeah. No, I knew that everybody would be wondering about that. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say as a follow-up to that, I know you had done an exercise with Telstone last year where they kind of were tracking the number of students.
Oh, we've already talked about
Not for
that.
first day, but yeah.
Oh, no, we're doing that.
Sometime during September,
No, Monday, the following Monday. Oh, no, we've already, we've got a plan. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we have to now. Yeah, we have to, yeah. Yep.
Great.
So, everything went well with that.
Okay.
As far as working with Telstone and all.
All right.
I do have two things, if we could, before we finish up.
Sure.
One is to remind you that if you'd like to join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for the new teacher orientation, you're certainly welcome to join us.
Where is that?
Right in this very room.
Okay. 9 o'clock until?
9 till about 9:45, and then they separate out. So,
Okay.
there'll be coffee and so forth as well. And first day is the 26th. There is no keynote speaker this year. So I will do my very best to be as well prepared as possible. That is on the, coffee is at 8 o'clock on the 26th. The actual beginning of the first day in the auditorium presentation is at 8:30, if you'd like to join us for that as well. That runs from 8:30 till 10 o'clock on Monday, the 26th.
Okay.
And if I could also just take a second to recognize Ms. Keegan for her detail, her process, the transparency she shares, and all the work that went into all of the closing out of the books and all the information that we have.
Yeah, no, I hope you don't take the lack of questions as a lack of interest. I think it's
Oh,
just,
no,
it's
not
a
at
product
all.
of, you've done a very good job explaining this to us over time, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other topics not anticipated? Okay, seeing none, I do not believe we need executive session this evening. So with that, I will be looking for a motion to adjourn at 8:34 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:34 PM.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn from Kelly.
Second.
A second from Becky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.